Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And an interesting escalation here, where you have here, this I think happened recently. I'm sure it'll give us a date in here. But pretty much, as you see in the title, dramatic video, anti-ICE protester. Because I believe yesterday I was here. I was seeing reports about a standoff, right? Basically, a clash between ICE and anti-ICE protesters. And here, right, it says an anti-ICE protester fires weapon at federal agents during immigration raid. And this, right here, okay, this action here is a it's very important. It's actually major, even though you can say like nothing came of it at that time, but that's not the point, right? The point is that at some point something like this was bound to happen, right? And it won't be the last time something like this happens. So it's really like a door opener for the next phase of things, because as you can see, these anti-ICE protesters, at least based on what we saw in here, it's not just something that people are writing on cardboards and holding it up, saying stop this and X, Y, and Z. No, because similarly, when ICE goes after people, they're not playing games, right? They're going and they're like, grabbing people up. They don't care who you are, where you are, what's going on. They're basically taking you out of there, right? So you're seeing the reaction to that is more like people are serious about it. So this sets some form of a precedent here. Now, with somebody like the cruel Lord, right, Trump in office, he's the type to should something like this happen, or more incidents like this happen, it definitely wouldn't be a far-fetched for him to allow them to basically give them the use of deadly fire if needed, right, to protect their lives or their safety. Now remember, when you there was it where it was a sheriff, but I forgot from where, what state. But he mentioned that if you try to harm them, right, they're gonna shoot you dead, right? He said that straight up. So we're into that time where things are about to eventually start getting straight up violent, right? Straight up deadly, I should say. Anyway, dramatic video footage from Ventura County, California, shows an anti-ICE protester discharging what appears to be a weapon at federal agents during an immigration enforcement operation in an agricultural zone. The nature of the weapon remains unconfirmed, right? So whether this was a gun or whatever it was, it's interesting. Now, say the next time it is an actual gun, right? And say even worse, an ICE agent gets hurt, harmed, or killed in a situation like this. Where do you think that's going to lead to, right? What kind of escalation do you think that's gonna turn into? And the thing about escalations is that it only takes one side, right? One side goes up, the other goes up as well. So and recently too, right, I did a lesson on that. You had this I keep forgetting their positions, but she was a lady, right, a woman that was in a certain position, and she was calling for the gangs, right, to basically come out and defend their territories against ICE. Why them? Because they have weapons, right? Because they would be able to coordinate. How would they defend it, right? Because they would use their weapons. So, if and when it gets to that point where now you're having protesters firing actual weapons, or bullets at ICE agents, don't be surprised if ICE gets permission. If not ICE, they send in actual troops that would have the permission to be able to use whatever force necessary to get the situation under control. It says here a protester was seen apparently firing some kind of weapon at federal agents during the immigration raid at a farm near Camarillo on Thursday. And keep in mind, there's some people that are like, yo, I would rather die than to be deported or sent to some um, alligator Alcatraz or immigration detention center or whatnot. And they just be like, yo, F it. Like I'm going out fighting. And next thing you know, there's a whole, bullets being fired left and right. It's unknown if anyone was injured in the chaos, local media outlet ABC7 wrote in a post on X, and I think they have the video in here. ABC7 released additional details about the immigration raid and the resulting violent clash between protesters and federal agents. The operation was taking place at a farm along Laguna Road near Camarillo. Air 7 was over the scene, surrounded by fields as federal agents formed a line across the street. At one point, a group of protesters were seen facing off with agents, some of whom threw smoke canisters toward the growing crowd. During the chaotic moments, Air 7 captured one of the people gathered at the demonstration, allegedly firing a gun towards federal agents. This happened after the agents fired smoke canisters at the crowd. There were no reports of any injuries. And that's the thing, right? With a situation like this, right? This is the scene here. With a situation like this, it doesn't matter if somebody was injured or not. The fact that it got to the point where somebody took out, what seems to be like a gun, right, and fired it at them, is basically a precedent right there, right? Because imagine other protesters looking at that, right, or the other people in that situation, like, yo, word two, if they pull up, I'm gonna take out my whatever and and use it. They seen somebody else do it. So let's take a look. A protester was seen apparently firing some kind of weapon at federal agents during the immigration raid at a farm near Camarillo on Thursday.
Take a look at this video right here. It appears a protest.
That definitely looks like a gun. Now, whether it's I doubt it would be a fake one. Pretty sure he's not using a BB gun over there.
Take a look at this video right here. It appears a protester fired some kind of gun at federal agents. This happened this afternoon. It was a really chaotic scene at the time. A lot of smoke was being launched at the protesters. And again, it appears a protester fired back with that weapon. It looks like he fired at least a couple of times. We have not heard about any agents being hurt.
So there you go, right? What does that tell you, right? If this is the direction they're going in, where do you think this is eventually going to end up, right? It says the incident follows the recent arrest of 10 individuals in Texas accused of orchestrating a planned ambush on ICE detention facility, on an ICE detention facility during the 4th of July weekend. So, this is just one of other events, like attempts of shit getting wild. And as they continue with their operations, you're gonna see more and more cases like this, right? Where maybe these individuals don't get caught, right? Maybe they are successful in executing some plan here. It says the back-to-back events suggest a continued escalation in coordinated anti-ICE activity nationwide. What began as low-intensity demonstrations is turning increasingly violent, and it's only a matter of time before somebody gets hurt or a couple people get hurt. And if it's on the ICE agent side, you best believe that Trump is gonna have something to say about that. Okay, especially the recent use of firearms and should be closely monitored. This surge in violence coincides with inflammatory anti-ICE rhetoric from Democratic figures. And that's what you're seeing, right? You're seeing it's like it went from deferring points of view to disagreements to division to outright like just opposing sides, right? So now it looks like more Democratic, not just Democratic states, but Democratic quote unquote leaders are. It's like they're yeah, you know what? It is what it is. They have Well, let's see it, right? It says here, including NYC mayoral nominee Zoran Mamdani, who declared we have to stand up and fight back. First off, this guy's not even a mayor yet, but look at how he's the amount of times they've put his name out there and the amount of things he said and how he's acting. He might as well be the mayor because they already foreshadowed that, you know, it looks like it's going to be him. So he's saying we have to stand up and fight back. Well, what do you think that's going to be in? If imagine this, right? You are in a position of being targeted, and you know ICE is being ruthless. They're coming in, they're taking up people left and right, and you hear, all right, hey, look over there in NYC, this guy, he's saying that, you know, we got to stand up, we can't take this, we got to fight back, even if we got to fight Trump. Of course you're gonna be like, hell yeah, I'm down with that. Get him up in there, because we're gonna have at least a fighting chance with somebody who's willing to stand up for us. And now you have your narrative, right? You have the one side against another. Trump is saying he would arrest this guy if he needed to. So this is your you know, the grounds being set for that division, and not just a division of words, right, or opinions, but as you can see, it can very quickly turn very violent, you know, almost warlike. I'll play this. What it says here: Democratic leader Zoran, yeah, we'll just call him Zoran, doubles down on anti-ICE rhetoric. We have to stand up and fight back. ICE agents were brutally attacked during the LA riots and seeing a 500% increase in assaults. Democrats are inciting more violence against our law enforcement officers. Well, you know what's interesting is they said they would do that, right? Before Trump got in office, they said that, and I did a lesson on it. So let's take a look.
Well, you know, the border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is planning to deploy ICE agents to New York, worksite enforcement to essentially increase and enhance the number of ICE agents here. If that happens on your watch, how do you plan to handle it?
We have to stand up and fight back, and we haven't seen that from our current mayor, who has instead been working with the Trump administration to assist in their goal of building the single largest deportation force in American history. I mean, we saw ICE agents arrest a migrant at Federal Plaza, and then we saw NYPD officers arresting a pastor who was peacefully observing that arrest. Those days are going to come to an end when I'm the mayor. The NYPD's job is to create public safety in the city, not to assist ICE agents in their mission to attack the very fabric of this city.
So, what happens then, right? Do you see a scenario where you got to stand up and fight back? So now you're defying ICE, right? And once again, whenever there's a clash, things tend to they just escalate. It's just natural, right? And it escalates, and one thing leads to another. One thing leads to another. Now you have literally a chaotic situation on your hands in different states, because as you've seen in the past, even with the C-19, what trends are picked up quick, right? What one state starts doing, others that are in like manner will start doing it as well, right? If New York starts doing a certain thing, they're like, yo, nah, F that. We're not letting ICE come up in here and do this. We're fighting back and all this, that, and the third. What do you think other cities or states that are in that same mindset, or they have leaders that are in that same mindset will do? They'll say, yeah, let's do what's going on over there in New York. And the more and more that happens, what do you think Trump is going to do as he's sitting over there? You think he's just going to say, oh yeah, you know what, go ahead and do what you got to do? How would he arrest this mayor here, right? If that was, well, this mayor here, look, they got me saying this shit. If this guy became mayor, how would he arrest him, right? There's certain acts like the Insurrection Act and any other types of emergencies that he can declare that can give him that presidential authority to basically do like a complete takeover. Now, how that's gonna turn out, hey, we gotta watch and see. But as the scriptures mention, you know, looking ahead, you can see how, based on the outcome of what's written in prophecy of what's to happen, you can see how these events are setting that up. So last month, a top far left city official, this is the one I was referring to earlier, by the way, in southeast Los Angeles County, called for Mexican gangs to mobilize against ICE agents. which I did a lesson on that, right? Get your effing members in order. LA official calls for Mexican gangs to mobilize against ICE agents. How do you think that's going to turn out? Tom Holman, President Trump's border czar, stated on Fox News earlier this week, the attack on ICE officers is up nearly 700% now. We have senators, we have congresspeople that compare ICE to the Nazis. The rhetoric has to stop, or it's a matter of time before one of those ICE officers goes down. Exactly. And what happens when one of those ICE officers goes down while trying to do their job? That's the real question. Let's take a look.
Who were these suspects who were fired, who actually fired the shots and were later arrested? Who were they, Tom?
Look, they're your typical protesters that go from protesters to criminals. The attack on ICE officers, you've covered it many times, is up nearly 700% now. We were talking 500% a couple weeks ago, so it continues. The rhetoric against the men and women of ICE is skyrocketing, especially by members of Congress. We have senators, we have Congress people that compare ICE to the Nazis, compare ICE to racists, and it just continues. So the public thinks, well, if a member of Congress can attack ICE, why can't we? So the rhetoric has to stop. Or it's a matter of time for someone to, one of the ICE officers goes down or a criminal goes down. But we already see an officer go down.
To be clear, so these were American citizens? These weren't illegals who opened fire?
No. As far as the investigation, I want to get ahead of the local investigation on this, but they appear to be agitators, people that are protesting ICE operations, damaging ICE property, want to attack ICE officers.
So he didn't specify, right, in answering that question, but there you go. So now, what happens if American citizens are doing this, right? If you have, as he referred to, right, as illegals firing back, and you have American citizens joining them and firing back, what in the eyes of the, say, the federal government or the federal authority, what differential treatment do you think they would give to both? You know? Because at that point, it's like he said, right, they'll just treat you as a criminal. And they might, as it says, they might fire back. So the video we saw earlier, I think that was in California. This here is in Texas. Once again, you're gonna start hearing this more and more and more, because this is the new direction they want to go in, and it's building up justification eventually for something like martial law, right? Because if we have an operation, I'm saying we from their perspective, right? We have an operation to use ICE to, as they call, clean up the streets, right? Do get people out of the country that aren't supposed to be here, as they claim. Now, if that's not working, because as they're trying to do that, they're getting opposition, as he mentioned, from Congress and different leaders and people who are actually physically, fighting back, shooting officers and so on and so forth. Eventually, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to start to treat the streets or these operations like missions in a war zone. And they're going to say, well, or one option they can go with is, we need to escalate this. We need the authority to be able to use whatever force necessary to get this job done. And now to basically shut down these people that are now firing back at these officers. And that is a nice segue, or a nice reason to use martial law like powers, right? To say, like, all right, at this point, if we gotta send out tanks on the streets, we gotta send out troops on the streets because we need to use overwhelming force to come against these people. Well, once again, how would then the opposing side react? That's how it goes, tit for tat, until one overpowers the other. And by then, like I said, you might very well be seeing boots on the ground and tanks down your streets because of that. It says here, yet Democrats have yet to denounce the violence and continue with dangerous anti-ICE rhetoric. It's going there. It's going there, and it'll get there very quickly. This is 2 Ezra chapter 16. I'm just going to get straight to the point, starting at verse 70. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. Actually, I think the one I wanted was up at 68. There we go. For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you. And they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols. And when you deal with this, ultimately that great multitude, like when we get to that point, when they start putting out troops on the streets, because they will do that, right? It tells you that in 2nd Ezra 15 as well. So when they start putting these troops on the ground, because of whatever cause it is, they're gonna be like, majority of them, could possibly be MK Ultra, right? But they're gonna be in a certain mindset of, this is your mission. You can't look at these people as your neighbor, or your congressperson or whatnot. This is the mission you're on. This is what you got to do. This is how you got to handle it. X, Y, and Z. So when it gets to that point, things are gonna be dire enough to where, you might start seeing people actually receiving bullets and some getting unalived on the streets. But anyway, wanted to cover that real quick as I found it pretty interesting, and I didn't even know about the one in Texas. But now you're already seeing that it's not just one here and then that's it. But this is starting to become a thing, where you're having people actually shooting these ICE officers or agents, or firing back against them, and you're having that being basically backed by some Congress people, some Democratic leaders, and so on. So let's see, right? Let's see where this goes from here. But definitely looking to be an interesting turn of events. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.